Hello, friends. Robert Bevan here, author of the Caverns and Creatures series of comedy, fantasy novels, and short stories. With me is Sam West, and today we're talking about what is it? What's
It's
today?
Monday.
It's Marshall Monday.
That's the one.
So we're going to be discussing another fighter archetype today. We are going down the list, and today we're covering the Eldritch Knight.
Eldritch Knight is my favorite fighter archetype from the Player's Handbook. I don't know how controversial that is. I don't know if Eldritch Knight, it's been kind of overshadowed in recent years with Echo Knight, with the Rune Knight does a lot of what Eldritch Knight's doing in a more, I'll use the word organic way. I really like it. It's not really because of its features, it's because it just has a third caster spellcasting list, and that's kind of good enough. But we can dive into it. So Eldritch Knight is an int caster that you pick at third level, and it gives you there's the full caster, which is the first through 9th level spell slots. You get every third level, or every other level you get a new tier, right? So at first, third, fifth, seventh, etc. And the half casters get it at half that distance, so they get every 4 levels they get a new one. And the third casters extend that out even further. So you get your first spell slots at third level in their first level. Then you get your next upgrade at 7th level, which is like a 5-level difference. And then that happens twice more. So you get first, second, third, and 4th level spells as opposed to 5th level spells. They end up kind of feeling really similar to half casters as far as the total resource pool you have in the mid game. You don't notice that big of a difference between like an EK and Ranger. At the same time, it is notably less, and there's no real reason why it can't be half casting, but it is just an archetype, it is just a subclass, and that's basically where we start, is you get 2 spells, first level spells, and 2 cantrips at third level. And if there's nothing else, that's great. If there were no other features, I'd be like, that is a fine archetype to have. 2 wizard spells, 2 wizard cantrips, some spell slots, you're happy with that. At least I am.
So you're talking about comparing this to half casters and stuff, but I know it doesn't work out that way. But I think in an ideal world, all the classes, the base classes, are supposed to be equal in power as they level up. So if you did anything less than heavily restricting their spell acquisitions, then you've got base fighter plus a bunch of spells, which would throw things off balance.
That's true.
Correct?
You end up in reality, what ends up happening is you, in the upper tier, you still have the more attacks than the ranger does, right? And if your archetype is trash and ranger, like a lot of the more in the Player's Handbook, especially the upper tier ranger archetype is pretty trash. An upper tier Eldritch Knight just felt like, oh, I'm playing a better martial class with spells, because you had still a pretty crappy pool compared to the full casters as far as like first, second, third level, and 4th level slots. Like you didn't have 9th and 6th and 7th level spells blowing up the world, but you did have about as much as the ranger and then extra attacks on top of them, and you just felt really good. And it's a big proponent as to why I'm like, yeah, Eldritch Knight kind of slaps, because it's competition. Yeah, I mean, Paladin does different things with spells in a more interesting way, and a lot of Paladin's core power comes from their big splashy features they get on their devotion, on their oaths and stuff. Eldritch Knight more so is you lean core onto the fighter's gameplay pattern of, I make a lot of attacks. And then, as opposed to getting like particularly interesting subclass features, you get expanded wizard spells that sort of fill in the gaps in your utility and give you just enough where you feel like, okay, I'm still just playing a generic fighter, I'm still just making a bunch of attack rolls, but then out of combat I can have Featherfall, then in combat I can have Shield, but then you have Find Familiar sometimes, you can find a bunch of little extra ways to juice your character up quite a bit.
All right, so is that what you recommend? Like, there are spells you can use to enhance your combat. Thought, if you're a fighter, maybe throw some magic juice on your attacks. But
So
you like them better for out of combat utility?
yeah, by quite a bit. I think you probably pick up Shield always, because Shield is really, really busto, and it's really comfortable to have, especially past like 11th level, because you can burn one of your 4 first level spell slots for +5 AC whenever you really, really need it. And then you're a fighter with heavy armor proficiency and shield proficiency, which means you can very comfortably sitting in the ACs of like 25 to 30 without much issue, just whenever you need it. And that's a very good place to be. Beyond that, I think if your aim is to empower yourself in combat, multi-classing is going to be a better option for you than sticking out for Eldritch Knight, letting those spells magically enhance your combat prowess. And we'll get into why sort of as we cover like the nitty-gritty of it. Just because, like, there's a lot of very specific features here, and how they function will kind of shape and say, okay, I'm doing enough of the attacking thing, and I'm really still mainly just doing the attacking thing. You're doing that well enough. having another avenue to empower a character in a way that like fighters just don't have in any other subclasses is really meaningful, right? Whenever we were talking about Echo Knight, I made a very big point to say so many of these features are usable out of combat. The teleport is super usable out of combat. The scouting is usable out of combat. Fighter is desperate for things that let it function outside of I make 3 attack rolls really well. Eldritch Knight then having an avenue to say I make 3 attack rolls really well and is a useful place where I think for it to start. And that's the expectation going into Eldritch Knight I would take. These spells aren't really going to make me, like, I'm not taking Burning Hands, I'm not taking big damaging effects, probably not taking Fireball. You might, but you don't need to. And instead taking options that empower you out of combat, I think is going to lead to a more satisfying play experience in most tables.
Right, but Burning Hands and Fireball, those are alternatives to making regular attack.
Right.
I'm talking about spells that could enhance your regular attack.
There aren't many of those, and they aren't very good. We're looking at like the smites, and they're not wizard spells because we're limited to the wizard spell list. So like if we look at this, we can actually just go through their features because that'll be useful, right? So spellcasting, you get 2 cantrips of your choice in the wizard spell list. You get 2 spell slots at first level. Additionally, to cast the learning of them, you learn abjuration and evocation spells only, except you know 1 extra of any school of your choice at first level. So you learn 3 spells at first level. 2 have to be abjuration or evocation, which notably shield is an abjuration spell, so that's pretty baller. But any other first level spell could be whatever you'd like, as long as it's a wizard spell. And then beyond that, at 8th, 14th, and 20th level, you get any school of magic spells, and otherwise you learn from whatever it says in the column. So 4th level, you learn a new spell. 5th level, 7th level, you learn a new spell. 8th level, you learn a spell of any type, etc., goes down the list. The gist of it is, like, every 3 levels, every 2-3 levels, somewhere in that range, you learn a new spell. And sometimes it can be from any school, and sometimes it has to be evocation and abjuration. It's a little bit needlessly complicated, yet here we are. The other thing that you get, notably, if you're you should go into Eldritch Knight planning to play Eldritch Knight because they care about int. If you're playing a regular fighter and you take an 11 in int and you're like hit 3rd level and go, oh, what archetype should I play? I haven't thought this far ahead. Eldritch Knight's going to be a little bit harder of a sell. You can still do it because you can do a lot of Eldritch Knight spells without caring about your int at all. There are whole builds where you'll just take shield, take find familiar, take spells that don't have spell save DCs, don't have spell attack rolls, and you'll be like, I don't really care what my int score is because that doesn't add to these effects. Just, going into the option, if you wanted to take spells that care about your spell attack, care about their spell save DC, you should probably want to have at least a 14 int to make sure your DC is like reasonable. The other thing you get at 1st level or at 3rd level, and like spellcasting is a giant, huge, amazing feature that encompasses every 1st level spell as its own kind of feature, and you can combine them in different ways. There's a bunch of different options you can take with it, so it's kind of overwhelming from that perspective. But you also get this thing called Weapon Bond. So Weapon Bond is kind of like Pact of the Blade. So you perform a ritual over a course of an hour. That can be done during a short rest. You do it to a weapon. It must be within your reach during the ritual, at which the conclusion you forge a bond with the weapon. Once you've bonded with the weapon, you can't be disarmed of that weapon unless you're incapacitated, which doesn't come up that often. If it's on the same plane of existence, as a bonus action, you can teleport it to your hand, which is neat. So you can kind of never be disarmed. Again, very Pact of the Blade-esque. Finally, you can have up to 2 bonded weapons, but can only summon 1 at a time with your bonus action. So you can have like a bow, sword, or a great sword, an axe. You probably are doing a bow and a sword because it's a ranged option and a melee option. But maybe you want to do the thrown weapon fighter thing, and you're throwing javelins and teleporting it back, and throwing the javelin and teleporting it back. I don't know. You can do those kinds of things with this. That's all you get at 3rd level, though, is spellcasting, which is the bulk of what you get, which is 2 cantrips and 3 1st level spells with 2 spell slots. And then this weapon bond thing that's largely fluff that doesn't have a particularly big impact on the game, I don't think, at least.
Pretty happy with that. That's it could have an impact if you want to look unarmed and then suddenly be armed.
Sure. Bonus action is also nice and cheap, right? It's like, okay, it's here. Got it. Let's fight now. And fighters aren't great at using bonus actions. So, let's do a little bit of upside. Sure, why not? 7th level is a non-feature. You get War Magic, and this says, when you use your action to cast a cantrip, you can make 1 weapon attack as a bonus action. I say this is a non-feature because you could make 2 attack rolls instead, and you're definitely better at making attack rolls than you are at casting cantrips. So, yeah, I don't think War Magic is much of a feature, but you do learn a new spell of any spell level, and get 2nd level spell slots here too, which is the secret real meat of what feature you actually get, is 2nd level spell slots, 7th level, which is pretty good.
All right, well, go back to War Magic. Now, all right, say you've got, at this point, you've got 2 attacks?
Yes, 2 attacks.
So, if you use a cantrip, you get to make an attack.
Correct.
Does that count as just one of your attacks, or do you still get the other attack?
So the only time extra attack happens is whenever you take the attack action on your turn. If you don't take the attack action on your turn, you get no benefits from extra attack whatsoever. It does nothing.
Okay.
So if you make any kind of attack with a bonus action, it does not qualify for extra attack ever.
All right, so you are essentially foregoing one of your 2 attacks to cast a cantrip.
Yep, and you should not do that. That is
That's
not good.
Great. Yeah.
No, you want to be sharpshooter and you want to be great weapon mastering. You want to even be like just attacking with a long sword because that's what your character's built to do. And you want to make 2 of those attacks and use your bonus action for something else if possible. And some spells let you do bonus action stuff, so maybe to take one of those. You can have at second level you have second level wizard spells, which opens up a lot of neat options for you. We recently talked about a spell that both said it's Rhyme's Binding Ice is a neat little AoE control-y tool that also does damage. It fits pretty well. Again, it having a save DC does kind of make you want higher int, but you can even have, Flaming Spheres and bonus action damaging area of effect that you can throw around while you're whacking things. So I'm not particularly compelled to cast cantrips and then make a single attack roll. Especially whenever I have extra attack, which is why it's kind of a bogus feature. Second level spells is not a bogus feature, though. Second level spells are baller. And I think towards the end of this, we can kind of go over what are the good abjuration and evocation spells they'll be looking at and what other spells might supplement as well. Before that, let's just blitz through the rest of these. So 10th level is Eldritch Strike. You learn how to make your weapon strikes undercut a creature's resistance to your spells. When you hit a creature with a weapon attack, it has disadvantage on the next saving throw it makes against a spell you cast before the end of your next turn. And this is a pretty sweet feature if you have bonus action spells that have high impact. Because you can Eldritch Strike something, then immediately disable it. Those don't largely exist to my knowledge. We'll look at the list in a second to sort of double check. But for the most part, it's going to be you attack something, you set up a conditional AoE effect for your next turn, which is pretty cool. We have Arcane Charge at 15th level. So this is you get the ability to teleport 30 feet to an unoccupied space you can see whenever you use your action surge. Sweet. You get a second action surge later down the road too. Why not? You can also teleport before or after you take the extra action. So you can be wail into this thing to extra attack, or take your regular attack action, wail into something, action surge, wail into it again, and then teleport away. Which is, neat little thing. Is it worth a 15th level slot? Probably not. Or 15th level feature? Probably not. But again, you also get a new spell from a different school. So, that's something. And then it caps out with improved war magic. So whenever you use your action to cast a spell, you can make a weapon attack as a bonus action. Which is a lot better than the cantrip one, just because now you don't feel as punished for casting spells instead of taking the attack action, but it is still pretty punishing to not make 3 attacks or 4 attacks at this stage, as opposed to casting a spell. So it's kind of like a consolation prize.
You're talking pretty fast. Let's go over improved war magic one more time. What do you get to do here?
When you cast a spell with an action, you can make a bonus attack. Any level spell, first through fourth. You can make a weapon attack as a bonus action.
Okay, yeah, that. But again, you are only making 1 attack.
Yeah, and at this point you have 4, so you don't want to be doing this if you can possibly help it. It's nice that
it's gonna depend on what that spell is. Any level spell, you're open yourself up to potentially 4th level spells here.
Yeah, and your wizard's casting Meteor Swarm and Wish, so
yeah, that's true. I don't know. There could be something there.
Absolutely.
It's not a cantrip.
Yeah, 100%. It is way more meaningful than a cantrip ever will be. It is definitely a kind of feature where you'll feel a lot better about making the decision to cast a spell in combat as an Eldritch Knight when you also at least get a bonus action attack out of the deal. I really wish it was 2, but 1 is still fine, I suppose.
And if you've got your sword out and you've only got 1 enemy within range, then you cut its head off and, I don't need my other attacks.
Unfortunately, you have to do it in the other order, right? Because you have to cast the spell already. So you can't, make 1 attack and then decide.
Probably going to cut its head off.
So, bonus action spell, and then probably cut its head off. Works for me. So yeah, that's... All of these features aren't all that compelling. I think Arcane Charge is neat, but it being, twice per short rest, 30-foot teleport isn't revolutionary or anything crazy. We talked about Echo Knights. Echo Knights can teleport at will. That's pretty spicy with 15-foot teleports that kind of move around 30 feet-ish. I don't know. It's definitely a lot better than this. Eldritch Strike is cool, but a little bit... the way it's staged out in the game is whenever you're casting 2nd and 3rd level spells at 10th level and they're getting disadvantage on the checks, it just doesn't feel that good whenever you're dealing with 5th and 6th level spells. So that are forcing you to make saves, so it's kind of which, again, we lean back kind of the same spot. The bulk of the power here is in the spell slots, I think. Would you kind of agree based off of this reading?
Absolutely. I'm not really impressed with Arcane Charge at all. I mean, teleportation is neat, but you're a 50th level character. That's lost a lot of its luster by now.
Yeah, your wizard was doing that at 3rd level, just misty stepping around, having a great time, and they could do it twice per long rest, and you can do it once per or twice per short rest now because you get the extra action surge. But like, you don't want to have to spend your action surge to get a 30-foot teleport in each situations. So you can learn misty step. That's nice. It does take one of your 4 non abjuration or evocation spells, but that's not the end of the world.
Yeah, is that where we're going next? Talk about particular spells.
Unless you want to talk more about how lackluster these features are.
I'm looking at War Magic is at level 7, and then Eldritch Strength at level. Because I'm thinking, if you want to be an Eldritch Knight, just hybrid fighter / magic user, where would you be better off just multi-classing instead?
Okay, so I think you would want to multi-class if you wanted to actually play somebody that was planning to do an exact hybrid sword sorcery, where you want to have a character that doesn't mind forgoing attacks to cast spells. If you want to play a character that caps out on 2 attacks and you go, that's a fine enough turn if I don't want to use a spell slot, but then has more powerful magic at their backup, like at their disposal, and has also, really importantly, subclass features that enhance that magic further, that's when I'd look to multi-class a fighter full caster as opposed to go Eldritch Knight. If you want to go Eldritch Knight, I think what you want to be thinking of first is, I want to play a fighter that predominantly takes the attack action in combat. I want to play a character whose objective is to fire a longbow 4 times around, attack with a greatsword 4 times around, go in with a polearm and a shield and mess some people up. This is all to say that these builds in combat, the longbow and greatsword are nice because you have an open hand to do material and somatic component casting, so you can more easily grab your spell focus and whatnot. Whenever you're doing like a shield and sword or anything that requires using 2 hands, it's a lot harder because you don't have a free hand to use your material and somatic components. So your build is somewhat narrow if you wanted to do the sword and sorcery thing in Eldritch Knight already. But that's to say more so, it lends really well to playing a character that is going to make a lot of attacks in combat, and is supplemented out of combat with a little bit of utility here and there, with a little flexibility of being able to cast some debilitating area of effect spells, some debilitating, banishment-like effects. You're going to be pretty happy taking powerful spells that are things full cast or martial characters just can't do, getting them on your sheet, and having that carry you largely to the mid-game while you still predominantly lead the I make a lot of attack rolls fantasy that fighters trying to offer.
Well, let's talk about some of the spells then.
Okay. So there are 3 different categories of spells. There are abjuration spells, evocation spells, and then the ones you should weigh the heaviest because you get the least of them, and that's spells of any school of magic. So going through like abjuration wise, absorb elements and shield are both baller spells. They are easily top contenders. I'm pretty sure if you wanted to be playing an Eldritch Knight, they're the first things that I'm looking towards. If you want to have more defensive options, you have like Protection for Good and Evil, which is cute. You can pick up Snare if you're, I don't know, wanting to take a bad spell. And that's the whole of the first level options. Second level abjuration stuff is pretty lackluster. If there's like single digit, if that. I'm scrolling through the list and I'm not seeing a single abjuration effect. Oh, there we go. Oh, that's the Unearthed Arcana that never got released. Yeah, there are no second level abjuration options that I'm seeing. Bummer there. 3rd level options, you've got counter spell is a pretty big one, and it's also pretty good to have on your Eldritch Knight. Same with Dispel Magic, kind of for the reasons I talked about before, which is it's a way to interface with something that a fighter character otherwise just can't, and that's dealing with magic. And getting access to both these is a pretty enormous deal. These are the ones that I'm very eager to pick up the moment I have the ability to. And notably, they're powerful reactions. You've heard 3 of the 4 of these are powerful reactions. Intellect Fortress is utter trash. Non-detection is utter trash. So yeah, don't go with those ones. And then 4th level, we're looking at like Banishment. And that's about it. But Banishment's a pretty good abjuration effect. So I'm not even a little bit upset for that one. You also have Stone Skin if you really want resistance to damage, but Stone Skin's awkward for a bunch of different reasons. I wouldn't recommend it.
We talked about Stone Skin. It's just mundane damage, right?
Yeah. And you're getting this at like 17 levels, so
right.
Because the 4th level effects come very, very late. Any of the abjuration effects stand out to you, Bob?
Stone Skin. I don't know. You blew through them so fast.
Them off. There are a ton of them. talking about subclasses that are basically whole new classes is difficult to do in a condensed fashion just because there's so much to talk about whenever you look at like the varieties of spell options and stuff available to you.
No, if I try to look through all these and give an opinion, I'm just going to drag this video off.
That's fair. Yeah, you've heard my recommendations though. Absorb Elements, Shield are excellent. Dispel Magic, Counterspell are both excellent. Banishment is excellent. That's 5 easy ones you could pick up as an Eldritch Knight as you go. Next School of Magic's Evocation. I think the Evocation options are way, way worse, and they're way, way worse because you don't need them. Because you have attack rolls, and that's going to cover most of what they're doing pretty well. Getting a Burning Hands at 3rd level is not even close to the same as getting a Burning Hands at 1st level, and you're not going to get a lot of better effects as the game progresses. So, like, you could take Magic Missile. It's nice to have that consistency of it always hitting. I'm not a big fan. The 1st level options, I think, are pretty underwhelming to say the least. 2nd level options, we've got like Darkness is kind of cute. It's a way to interface with the world of being a big bubble of darkness. Big fan of that. You've got stuff like Gust of Wind, which is cute. If you have like a druid in the party and you want a place to put your concentration that's like messing around with environmental people shoving things about, this is a fine place to put your bonus action turn after turn too. So, that's a consideration. You got Melf's Acid Arrow, uncastable trash. Ryan's Binding Ice. That's the other one we talked about recently that's pretty solid. And like Shatter is fine. I'm never excited to cast Shatter on, again, a character that's getting it so much later than everyone else is. With evocation spells,
it's another damage spell. A damage spell, but your damage is coming from attacks. So
yes,
like straight up damage spells don't impress me much here.
Yeah, 100% agreed.
Unless
Fireball's
they have
3rd level option.
some kind of rider with a effect or condition attached, but yeah.
That's why Rhyme's Binding Ice I think is notable, right?
Yes.
The root seems really valuable. It hits a decent sized cone. I'm a big fan. The other evocation options, like Sending is technically an evocation option. Sure. That is a utility option you could consider. I don't think you need it. The Wall of Sand and Wall of Water are both neat. Are either worth it? Probably not. And in the 4th level department, like you're at a tier that's so late that there aren't going to be any, like Fire Shield is probably the best option you get because now it's a non-concentration 2d6 damage reflection for 10 minutes. And that's pretty solid, but like, at 18th level, it's a lot less solid. That's ultimately, if you can avoid evocation spells, I would recommend avoiding them, only taking them whenever you like absolutely have to. Whenever you're like, I literally have run out of other reasonable abjuration options. I have to pick a thing with evocation. I guess I'm picking up Rhyme's Binding Ice. I guess I'm picking up Fireball. I guess I'm picking up Scrying or Sending, whatever it was.
Sending. I noticed none of these spells. I mean, for abjuration, you got Shield and Absorb Elements. That'll help you out in a fight in a way that just your straight up stab isn't doing on its own. Not noticing anything that actually helps your attacks. I saw you did not mention Booming Blade, which is
that's a cantrip.
Evocation. Yeah. Yes.
You can take it at 1st level. I don't love. You could take it at 1st level and use it up till 7th level. And the reason you can do this little cute combo is Booming Blade being an attack action that is a cantrip means you can use your 7th level bonus action attack after you use Booming Blade to still kind of get multi-attack. The moment you get your 3rd attack, you stop using it because 2 attacks is way better than casting Booming Blade. But like, that is an option you have at your disposal if you want.
It's a cantrip, and so you'll get it early.
I would definitely rather have Mage Hand and Minor Illusion. I would definitely rather have utility cantrips than Booming Blade because your attacks are definitely already good enough. And Booming Blade is somewhat narrow in that, like, if you're playing a frontline fighter, you probably want to engage and like fight with something and don't move them around all that much. So unless you build towards Booming Blade, which you absolutely can, you're probably not going to be able to juice it all that much on like your average random frontline fighter with a great sword or with a long sword and shield, right? It's kind of tricky to get that extra pushed damage to occur. That being said, it's on the utility of it is it's a regular attack, and that's fine on a fighter because again, at 7th level, you get the bonus action attack. If you're not using bonus action anyway, yeah, sure, why not?
Yeah, I'm not making a big argument here for Booming Blade. I'm just trying to think of any of these spells that can enhance my attacking, which is, if I'm a fighter, I want to fight, and if I'm picking a fighter subclass, I want it to make me fight better.
Unfortunately, Eldritch Knight is not the option for you then, because that is not what it does.
Okay.
As like I just rattled off a crap load of spells, right? I was like, here's all of these spells, word vomit out the mouth, hear it all. Not like you noticed. None of it enhances your attack rolls. None of it is any of the, flame arrows isn't on your list as far as like things you can pick up to enhance a build in some way or form. Enchantment is the school of magic that usually empowers attack rolls in some way, shape, or form, as you would expect, because it enchants things like weapons. And it leaves you in this little bit of an awkward space where you're like, if you really want ways to empower your attack rolls, you're spending your very precious few 5 any school options for it. You can do that. It's just like, what would you take? You could take like magic weapon, and I'm not thrilled with that. Second level spells. All right, so
no, like when do you get the any school spells?
Basically, every time you get a subclass level.
Okay.
So you get 1 at 3, 1 at 7, 1 at 10, 1 at 15, and 1 at 18, I believe. Yes. Or 8, 14. I'm sorry. They're not at the subclass levels. They're at 3, 8, 14, and 20. So you get 4 of them. I don't know why they chose those levels specifically. I'm guessing that's whenever you get. That's not even whenever you get the level improvement. I don't know why they picked those levels, but here we are.
Something to do with that level.
Sure. That's more things to do with more levels is good for fighters because they often just go like, what I do, I level up, great, write down new feature, and move on with my life. So it's nice that you get like a little bit more flexibility and stuff here. What spells do you want on an Eldritch Knight from a wizard, I guess is my next question. What would you think is this thing like you would want to jump towards or try and make work with your Eldritch Knights?
I don't know. There's so many freaking wizard spells.
There's a million wizard spells, and they don't tend to support like super combative attack rolls, unsurprisingly, because that's not the wizard class's bread and butter normally. I like move. Go for it.
I was gonna say hold person be cool, because then you can go murder them.
Correct. If you ever get a hold person, it's kind of like a duelist, like you're dead and they freeze up paralyzed, then you just run over and make 4 attacks against them and they explode. It's pretty spicy. I'm a big fan of any kind of mobility stuff. So like I'm a big fan of Misty Step. I'm a big fan of even like Long Strider is at least a little bit more interesting on fighter. Is it worth your single 3rd level new spell? Probably not. That's probably going to find familiar. But like, there are some mobility options to consider. I think you could take Silvery Barbs and be pretty happy with that. I think you could take yeah, that's always a good one if you want to empower yourself in combat and others. There aren't any really ways to enhance combat meaningfully if you want to try and do magical damage with this. So I wouldn't. Again,
there's a bunch of summoning options at level 4.
And those are all great. Well, they would be great if they happened at 5th level or at 7th level as opposed to at 19th. So, still reasonable, but like,
summoning, where's a bunch of attacks that were good 8 levels ago. But if you need a friend to help you kill something, then they're there for you.
Yeah, absolutely. That's definitely notable. My recommendations, take Find Familiar as your first one, just because it's really, 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 really good out of combat, and fighters desperately want things to be good out of combat. I would even consider things like the Sky Self and Charm Person. I would consider any tool that takes a character fantasy as your first of any, make it something that makes you better in circumstances you're not good already. Because fighters are good in combat. They're good at attacking things. And there aren't really ways to support that. Find Familiar kind of does, because you can like bonus action help you. So you got a little like parrot on your shoulder that's like mocking somebody and you're slapping it up a whole bunch with advantage. That's kind of cute. And then your familiar probably dies and you resummon it later. But that's not the biggest of deals. I think.
How can we pass this up? There's Fear's level.
That's a pretty solid 3rd level option that is a giant AoE condition, and those are again pretty solid, especially on fighters.
If you're a fighter and you got a bunch of dudes running at you, you make half of them drop their crap and run away, then you can handle the others, take them in turns. That's something cool.
Absolutely. And because it hits such a giant area, even with your spade DC being relatively low, you're still not that upset about it, right? Like you said, if half of them fail, If a third of them fail, you're still pretty
Right.
happy with that outcome, getting like 3 creatures out of 9 to not be attacking you right now. It's a pretty good place to be.
Oh,
Are you feeling overwhelmed? Because I am.
yes. I don't think we've gotten this in. I mean, there's just hasn't been as much to say about the other subclasses. Once you
No.
get anything with a bunch of spells to sort through, then you're gonna have a longer conversation.
Yeah, that's why I love this. If you're the kind of player that wants to play fighter because you don't have to deal with this specifically, you probably shouldn't be playing Eldritch Knight. Like, this is definitely a, how do I maximize the effectiveness of this specific spell list on my character with its strict limitations, and how do I make my character exactly tooled to how I want it to be with this option. That's why I really like it. The only fighter I've really ever enjoyed a ton was an Eldritch Knight. That being said, I get that it's not going to be for everyone. I still can't say enough. I recommend out-of-combat utility options as your bread and butter go-to useful, like, new learned spell. I think Misty Step is a great, cheap option for you to take an 8th level to give you a 30-foot teleport. If you want that, it'll feel really good on a fighter to, like, blink around in combat. It'll also feel really good out of combat to blink in around different places. So that's a big perk to it. Anything that can do both is great. Find Familiar, Misty Step can do both. So I love this subclass dearly. I think it's still a fighter in the upper tiers ultimately, because 4th level spells don't make up for, 9th level spell differences. I think this is probably a solid B. It's not for everyone though, and I would steer some people clear of this if they're looking to play like I would push them to Blade Singer if you want to be a natural hybrid caster plus attacky kind of character. I put you to War Mage, or even like Abjurer and stuff. I'd point you to, if you want to do spell casting that supplements your attack rolls and not spell casting that supplements your character in other ways.
Yeah, I'm going to defer to your wisdom again on this one. I do not have much experience with the Eldritch Knight, but I have enjoyed listening to you talk about it. I'll agree with your B.
Nice.
Just, that's easier than thinking.
There's a lot to break down in this one. It's not even remotely simple.
Eldritch Knight. Thank you, Sam, and thank you everyone for joining us. Let us know what you think about the Eldritch Knight down in the comments below, and like and subscribe and all that, and we will see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching. If you found this helpful, informative, or entertaining, I'd really appreciate it if you hit the like button below. You needn't smash it, a gentle tap will suffice. If you want to see more videos like this, subscribe to the channel. And make sure you check out the links in the description, where you'll find my Caverns Creatures series of comedy fantasy novels, Sam's full review of the spell, and other fun things.